founder, extremely excited to be at the table with you all today. We go live every week, Thursday at 3 p.m. Central, with leaders and leadership topics that matter most to you all. And we've been doing this now for 3+ years, 182 episodes in, and the type of leadership and insights and perspectives that we've been able to bring to the table has been nothing less than inspiring, I know, for our Thought Team community. And we want to welcome all those new folks that are joining us today, whether that's on our LinkedIn live feed or our YouTube channel, or maybe even at thoughtteam.com/live. So we want to welcome everybody to today's show. This is an exciting one because I love to be at the table in conversation with leaders who work with leaders. That's really the work that we exist to do, is elevating leadership within organizations here at Thought Team. And we work with a handful of external partners that do it better than anybody. And we have been thrilled to get to know today's guest. And we're also excited to support him, his organization, and the launch of his new book, The Power of Ownership. Today's guest is the founder of Own It Coaching, Justin Roethlingshoefer. He is an author. He is a coach. He's a leader, and he's a business builder. All of the great elements to a wonderful Navigating Now episode today focused on the power of ownership. So we want to welcome Justin to the table. Justin, welcome.
It's so great to be here. I just appreciate you so much, and taking the time to just open up the platform. And I think we're going to have a real powerful conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Now, Justin, you and I were put in touch by a good mutual friend, and very quickly we realized that our work in really elevating leadership and ownership amongst individuals, teams, organizations is quite common. I have had the privilege of talking to a lot of leaders like yourselves, business builders, folks that are in charge of really working with individuals one-on-one to elevate their performance. And one of the common threads is that most leaders who work with leaders have some inflection point or experience in their life that really shifted them into a place of wanting to help others. And I'm curious, what was that inflection point for you?
Yeah, I mean, mine's very direct. Forever I was managing the health, wellness, and performance of the best athletes in the world in the NHL. Did it for just over a decade. And as I got to this unique point in 2019, 2020, where all of a sudden I started to have brain fog. I started to have headaches. I started to have stomach aches. I started to not be able to sleep very well. And these were symptoms that I had never experienced before. And I say all of this to say that at the same time, I was also competing at the world championship level of different triathlons, winning marathons, going to my first CrossFit games, like really competing in a good physical condition. And so everybody would look at me and go, man, you're the picture of health. But inside, I felt like I was dying. And it was at that moment that I had gone to a bunch of doctors, and they'd all said, no, you're perfectly healthy. You look great. We'd love every one of our clients to look this way. And all your blood work looks perfect. It all of a sudden hit me. Why am I not doing the same things for myself as I've been doing for my athletes? Like, why am I not looking at the same data, the same metrics, the same guiding parameters? And when I realized that I was actually the asset, that's when I started to change my thought process. And I went and I looked at my cellular testing, and I had 22 cellular deficiencies of key vitamins, minerals, and amino acids, where all my other blood work came back perfect. That didn't catch that said I actually had everything I needed. And then heart rate variability. And I noticed that my HRV was that at the bottom 15 to 20% of where it should be for my age category and bracket. And I was like, okay, interesting. So I started to put some things in place. I started to feel better, but I didn't feel great still. And so I went to the doctors and got a colonoscopy and an endoscopy, and they ended up finding 4 polyps the size of my thumb that were all precancerous, and an ulcer the size of a quarter in my stomach that were also precancerous. And they said, if you had not come in, you ultimately would not have seen your 35th birthday. And that was like the pinnacle point for me, the inflection point where I was like, you know what? We either earn our health or we earn our illness based off our habits, our behaviors, and our lifestyle choices that are either intentional and consistent or just done by default. And so many leaders, so many people who are pushing, who are serving, who are tip of the spear people are having to trade their health for their mission. And simply because they're unaware that they're the asset, unaware of what they should be looking at, unaware of how to build a life by design, they ultimately end up earning their illness.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing your story. I mean, it's quite incredible. Somebody who, grew up essentially an athlete, was and works with professional athletes. Somebody that for all intents and purposes, had such command over kind of like your physical being, had symptoms and developments that were lying like layers underneath that might not have shown up in your typical physical. And I know in your new book, The Power of Ownership, which we're going to get into in a moment, you coined this term fake health, which I think is so fascinating because so many of us, executive leaders or not, are maybe living day to day with traditionally healthy markers as told by our regular kind of primary care physician,
Yeah.
but underneath are all of these symptoms that ultimately will kill us. So tell us a little bit about this concept of fake health.
Yeah. So when you talk about fake health, on the far, it's a spectrum. And so on the far left side, you've got true health. It looks different for everybody, but it's you wake up in the morning, you throw your pants on, you go for a run, you go to the gym, you come back home, you get the kids dinner, or pardon me, you get the kids breakfast, you get them off to school, you go, you get your to-dos done all throughout the day, whatever your task list is. You're super focused, you're super mentally clear, you feel like you're just in flow. You come home, you get the kids off to soccer, to football, to track and field, ballet, go to the PTA meeting, you have dinner, you connect with your spouse, you go to sleep, you sleep deeply. That's true health. Something like that. Some version. The far right side is death and disease. This is where you've been diagnosed with a chronic illness, you've got disease, or you've got diabetes, you've got cancer, you've had a stroke, you've had a heart attack, you're being treated for something. Like you're past the point of going down a road, you've arrived at your road. Where now, quite frankly, this is for a lot of people rock bottom, where oh my gosh, I have to do something now.
Yeah.
But 90% of us live in this middle space called fake health. Disease free, but symptom full.
Mm-hmm.
And we consider this normal.
Yeah.
It's normal to have brain fog. It's normal to have energy loss. It's normal not to feel well. It's normal to have energy lulls in the middle of the afternoon. It's normal not to sleep well. It's normal to have not be mentally clear. It's normal to not be able to focus. It's normal to have gut aches and bloating. It's normal to have hormone issues. It's normal to bloat and swell when we're traveling and taking in water or certain foods. That's what the world tells us is normal. That's what it looks like to be a leader. That's what it looks like to run a team. That's what it looks like to be a mom, to be a dad, like all of these lies. But the longer we stay here, the faster this window closes to when it all of a sudden shuts and thrusts us into this death and disease bucket. And it feels like overnight we had our health go to crap. But if we were actually aware, there was so many signs along the way. And what we end up finding is that chronic stress, and I'm not talking about the pull the hair out your stress that we have. It's eating food is a stressor on our body. Exercising is a stressor on our body. Thinking is a stressor on our body. Being in front of fluorescent lights like shining on me and you right now to make us look good is stress on our bodies. Being able to think and process and problem solve and be on Zoom calls is a stressor on our body. There are things that we take for granted that our body actually operates on and continues to adapt throughout the day so we can function. Chronic stress, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, body doesn't know the difference. Chronic stress creates chronic deficiencies that lead to chronic symptoms that lead to chronic illness. And the lack of awareness of what chronic stress is, what chronic deficiencies are, and what symptoms we're experiencing ultimately leads us to this road of chronic illness. And it happens so quickly, which is why we're seeing the leading cause of death in the United States at 71% being that
Chronic illness.
we're ultimately earning this outcome. And if we even take that a step further, you look at people in high leadership positions, you look at people in high pressure jobs, that number jumps to 81%.
Yeah, I mean, it's so compelling. First of all, I so appreciate like that framework, like even that mental framework of true health and chronic illness and this fake health kind of being in the middle. And I think we can all relate a bit to being in that tipping point population, if you will, and how quickly that door closes. So Own It is your organization, and you specialize in highly personalized individual and group coaching, which we can touch on. But I want to focus more on this book that you just launched this week. Congratulations! It's
Thank
called The
you.
Power of Ownership, and it's really focused on what I appreciate about the book is that it's focused, yes, on very tactical, practical actions that you can take to promote your own well-being and enable your own well-being. But almost half the book is a little bit on really understanding this concept of you call it understanding different, the mindset that it takes to take a more personalized approach to managing your health, and more specifically personalize habit formation and personalized behavior change. So tell us a little bit more about this concept of understanding different.
Yeah, so many of us in positions of leadership and positions of business builders, because we're the expert at building businesses, because we're the expert of building something, when something is broken in our business, we know how to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we don't know how to fix it, we can go find someone who does. And
Yeah.
that's what we continue to do. That is why we're successful. That is why we've gotten to the businesses that we are. That's why we are ultimately standing in the seats or sitting in the seats that we're in. But when it comes to your health, you have to realize that you're not the expert, you're the asset. And the asset needs to be managed. And the first thing that happens when it comes to managing an asset is you have to have awareness. I was just out in California yesterday speaking to the top 200 wealth managers in the country. And what we talked about was so many people come in and they're like, oh yeah, my wealth is great. But when actuality, we pull back the curtain and they look at it, they're like, no, you haven't been looking at it the right way. We have to do something different. The same thing with our health. The first thing we have to create is awareness. Awareness as to how our body is handling stress and strain. That's where awareness comes through data. I don't care about opinions. I don't care about thoughts. I don't care about feelings. I care about data to give us a truly personalized approach to how our health is being optimized or how it's being managed. Heart rate variability, sleep quality, and cellular deficiencies. Those are the biggest three things that we can ultimately have awareness to as to how our body is optimizing or operating based upon the habits, the behaviors, and the things we do daily in where we're going to go. So that's number one, is gaining awareness to how we are operating, because your habits and your behaviors that you do today are simply a vote for who you want to become tomorrow. And the downside is that we just don't have awareness as to what habits and behaviors we're engaging in. So number one is awareness. Number two is who. And a lot of people go, oh yeah, I read the book, Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. And it really comes back to this. But anytime you talk about your health, I get brought onto podcasts and shows all the time. Somebody goes, well, how do you actually end up managing your health better? How do you get a better HRV? How do you improve sleep quality? How do you diminish cellular deficiencies? And in Own It, when you work with us, we've got your personalized system that we'll build, but it doesn't start with that. If it was just about the tactics, we wouldn't have any issues, because there's so many tactics and systems and procedures out there that people just randomly throw out. But now you're having to do somebody else's game. You're having to play somebody else's game. So it's not about how, but it's about who. Who do you have to become? Who do you have to be called out and called up to be? Who do you have to have the priorities of? Who do you have to ultimately look yourself in the mirror and say, man, I'm just operating outside of a level of ownership. I'm operating outside of a level of responsibility. I have to be honest with myself. I have to ultimately come back and really confess about how I've been operating and how I've been acting, and that I haven't been treating myself as the asset. I've actually been putting myself last on the totem pole, realizing that everybody else comes before me. And until I get to that point, nothing else matters. So we have to gain awareness to then figure out who we need to become. And then lastly is when we start to develop the system that's personalized to you based off of the time of year you're in, the season of life you're in, the priorities you have, the experience that you're under, and the goals of what you want to attain. And it's at that point that we move into this last component, which is data, that really starts to drive the pinwheel over
Yeah.
again, because data then allows us to get more aware, which allows us to then develop again this system of who do we have to become, so that we can now create personal habits that ultimately change data again, and the flywheel gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And that's how over the course of time you become the most energetic, the most mentally clear, the most focused, the most optimized leader that you can. And that's what creates longevity.
Yeah. Oh, so good. A couple things I want to point out. One, I was just having a conversation with actually a colleague of mine this morning about how, as we've stepped into leading businesses and leading teams, our expectation for how quickly things resolve, both in our professional and in our personal life, has gotten unreasonably out of control short.
Yeah.
And we were talking about even just like health and dealing with, health issues, and how in such a fast-paced world, we expect even, some of the more serious kind of like health considerations outside of the walls of this business to be solved in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And like our whole perspective has shifted, which is so fascinating. And I would argue that, within corporate America, particularly in kind of entrepreneur land, if you will, we are still very much promoting that mentality, that kind of hustle culture mentality, which is like you move quick, you fail fast, and you handle things, right? Like you handle things. Now that doesn't translate to our personal lives, and that maybe gets me to my next point and my next question, because I love this whole progression of like it starts with awareness and then like radical acceptance of your current situation and what's going on. With the advent of a lot of tools and technology that are spewing data at us every day, the Whoop and the Ring and the Apple Watch, I think a lot of us, particularly us high drivers, type A's, almost immediately go to the data, right? And every morning you wake up and you're just infiltrated with how well you slept last night, and even, specific biometrics like HRV. And we're maybe overreacting based on that data. There's a term for it, like, being kind of like oversaturated with insights and data. So what are your thoughts on that? Like the fact that today, we understand that chronic stress is an issue. There's more technology than we know what to do with that will provide us all of the data. Is it a matter of just slowing down and again, taking that ownership and putting together a personalized plan? How do we not get overwhelmed with all of the data that's coming our way?
It's really good. I'm actually going to language correct you. And
Please.
This is the problem. The people looking at the data don't understand the data.
Yeah.
If you did understand it, you would become somebody new, because you would realize you're going in a direction that you don't actually want to be going. The fact of the matter is, the data. So because you know the data, you're like, oh, my sleep score is low. It's because I was up late last night. I know Ring. I know Ring. I get it.
Yeah.
But you still need to be convinced that things need to change. If you truly understood it, you would be then convicted. No, I need to create a change. I need to do something different. I need to operate in a different facet. I need to get the coach, because I know I don't actually understand this. There's this concept that I talk about of 3 types of wisdom. And if I had a pie chart here, a 5% sliver is what I know. So I know that I wear this ring or this Whoop band, and it gives me HRV every single morning. I know that when my HRV is higher, that's better. And when my HRV is lower, it's an alert to me.
Yep.
Then there's another small sliver, about 5%, that's I know what I don't know. So I know that I don't know how to improve my sleep. I know that I don't know how to actively take ownership of my HRV scores. I actively know that I don't know what really impacts HRV. I just know the metric. But then there's this 90% part of that pie chart, which is I don't know what I don't know.
Mm.
And that's where growth happens. That's where the tension happens. That's where the education and the learning happens. That's where the coaching happens. And it's the best, the most influential, the fastest movers, the fastest shakers, the people who are around the longest, the tip of the spear people, that they know that they have to operate in the 90%. They have to get somebody in their corner. They have to get a coach.
Yeah.
They have to get in a community. They have to get in a program with an influencer, with a consultant that helps them see what they don't see. And you time collapse the information that you don't know. So it becomes something that you begin to say, no, I know that. And until you recognize that your desire for awareness is the number one requirement, you will stay exactly where you are. You will not see improvement. You will not see growth. You will not move forward. And so the desire for awareness has to be a highest priority, or you'll stay exactly where you are.
Yeah.
And until we realize that, you will not see growth, you will not see influence, and will not see impact. And your health is not yours to master. Why? Because you are the asset, not the expert.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unless you get the team around you, it will be inevitable what your outcome becomes.
Yeah. It's so applicable not only to health, but also to leadership development, right? You know, that major piece of the pie, the I don't know what I don't know, is something that we are constantly underestimating.
Yep.
And we are constantly, acting as if we can be both the asset and the expert in our own health. So I love this kind of challenging of, yes, you can go and get all of the consumer electronics that feed you all of the data, but that will only promote a life where you are self-fulfilling your limited understanding of what is actually going on.
Checking the box.
Checking the box. Exactly. And it's not until we open that awareness and that understanding and that acceptance that we realize we need help. And that's essentially where, coaching systems like yours come in. That's also where a lot of kind of bullshit methods come in as well too. But let's talk a little bit about, Own It and your focus on creating personalized habit change. Tell us a little bit about personalized habit change, because I know that today we have more options in terms of how we approach habit change. Tell us about, the importance of making it a personalized approach.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said at the very beginning. If it was just about tactics, you wouldn't need any of us, because there's more than enough podcasts, there's more than enough lives like this, there's more than enough books, there's more than enough events, there's more than enough marketed products out there to solve every problem in the world. But the problem is you're created uniquely. You're created different. You are in a unique time of your life. You are in a unique time where you have unique priorities. You have unique stressors. And thus you can't solve a unique problem with a generalized approach. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so until we have the awareness that we are unique, that we are individuals, and unique individuals need unique individualized solutions, we won't see any moves forward. I'll give you a perfect example. Had a client come to me probably 3 months ago, and the guy had spent close to $100,000 on every single biohack you could ever imagine, had outfitted his whole room, had created really specific travel frameworks, was on every supplement you could imagine, but could not change how he was feeling internally. Like he was overwhelmed constantly. He felt sick all the time. He had no energy. And when we actually did his cellular testing, we found that he had 19 cellular deficiencies. When we looked at HRV and sleep quality, he was getting 15% of all of his sleep time in a quality state, which you should actually be between 40 and 50. And he's like, well, how do I actually improve these things? And it wasn't until we started to have conversation with him that he began to realize things that he had no clue about. He had no clue he wasn't supposed to, that he was supposed to stop eating like 3 to 4 hours before you go to sleep. He had no idea that he was supposed to be hydrating differently throughout the day. He had no idea that there was a better time to work out than when he shouldn't have. He had no idea that when he was traveling on the road, how he was changing time zones was impacting his body. He had no idea about all of these things. But when you started to create personalized systems based around what this man's lifestyle was like, within a month, the guy goes, man, I feel better than I did when I was 30 years old. Like,
Yeah.
how is this possible? And you got me off of all the TRT. You got me off of all the hormone therapy. You got me off of all the peptides. You got me off of 70%
Yeah.
of the things I was doing. Right. Because you're trying to solve a general or you're trying to solve a unique problem with a generalized approach.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
only when we can start to make it personal to you that the understanding you've gained from the data begins to make sense. And thus you become convicted to follow through and be consistent. Over the course of time, the longer we're consistent, the longer we're intentional, your excuse me, your outcome is inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. We are talking today about the power of ownership. This is a really unique look at well-being. And one of the things that Justin and his team, I think, really focus on is making well-being real to so many people. Not just bringing tools and kind of like one-hit wonders, but bringing an entire ecosystem that allows you to continue to expand your understanding and your awareness of the things that you don't know, which I just think is really, if there was one thing that I'm taking away from today's discussion, is to make space for those things that you may not understand about yourself. And don't underestimate the fact that you can spend all of the money on all of the tools.
Yeah.
You can have such high expectations on your own wellness and well-being and how quickly you get better. But it's not until you step into that space of the unknown that you realize, A, there's so much more to look at here, and it might be completely different than my own approach. And B, I need some help. Go ahead.
Can I add one thing to that, Anthony?
Please.
The unique part to what you just said was, this is why when somebody asks me, Justin, what's your greatest investment? I say my greatest investment that I make every single year is in coaching. And they're like, why? And when I say coaching, I'm not just talking about like a coach that comes in and coaches me on business.
Yeah.
I have 7 coaches for different areas of my life. I have a spiritual coach. I have a marriage coach. I have a business coach. I myself hire my own team members to be my own health coaches. Like these are the coaches that I have. I have a speaking coach. I have a marketing coach. Like I have these people that are in my life. I'm trying to learn piano, so I have a piano coach. Like I'm doing these things. Why? That's why I've grown so much and so fast and seem to be a master at so many things in the last 4 years, because I've had coaches that time collapse. What I don't know, I don't know. Now I could have gone and tried to figure out all this stuff on my own. But it would take me 10 to 15 years to figure some of this stuff out and actually get a system that worked. The coaches, the people that have gone through this, the people that have learned this, the people that have spent years becoming the expert, now get to go and work with you, the asset. So you get to benefit from all of those years and time collapsing it. And what is more important than being able to do it for your health? Because if you don't have your health, you actually can't do everything else that you're saying that you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, just such like challenging approach, but at the same time, extremely realistic. We all have the ability and the capacity to understand more about ourselves. We all have the ability and the need to bring experts in. And I just love the fact that like you, the coach of coaches, has 7 coaches yourself, right? I mean, if that tells our audience at all the power and the value of bringing expertise into your space, no matter what level of the organization you're at, or no matter how much control you feel you have over your well-being, we've got to bring expertise in. Justin, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Can we take a couple minutes? I've got a couple of topics that I wanted to talk about, but maybe we'll collapse them into like a little bit of a lightning round, and they're just going to like kind of come randomly at you. Sure. If you're cool with it, just a few minutes. You mentioned HRV being one of like 3 kind of key things to look at.
Yeah.
You know, so many of us are actually getting HRV, downloaded to our phone from our ring or our strap every morning. And I can tell you, I've talked to so many people who have no idea what it is. So like, if you had to explain it to someone, completely naive to it, in a couple sentences or less, like what is HRV and why should we be paying attention to it?
The simplest definition I've ever come up with, and it was when I was doing my postgraduate research in my doctoral work on HRV, was it is the language that your body's communicating with you, how you're adapting to the stress and strain you're being exposed to. So the higher your HRV, the better you're adapting to stress. The lower your HRV, it's more of an alert saying, hey, the rhythm that you're in is not working for me.
Yeah.
Scientifically, what HRV looks at is the time interval differences between successive heartbeats. When you are more relaxed, when you are more parasympathetic, when you're adapting better to stress, those heartbeats are much more sporadic, maybe 700 milliseconds, 820 milliseconds, 797 milliseconds, 950 milliseconds. And over the course of a minute, it beats a certain number of times. Now, all of a sudden, I get stressed out. I don't like being on podcasts. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten well. I haven't exercised. I'm not in very good shape. My wife just yelled at me before I got on here. My body's like, oh my gosh, we just need to keep Justin alive. And your heartbeats, the time intervals go 798 milliseconds, 797 milliseconds, 791 milliseconds, 795. And so the variation drops significantly. And so over the same 60 seconds, it beats X number of times. And so that's why it says it is the best metric to help us understand how our body's adapting to stress and strain. Higher, you're adapting better. Down, not adapting as well.
Yep. I love that. I think so many of us maybe just see it as a literal sleep score. And I think understanding what it means and its direct correlation to stress is so, so important, because that's obviously then when you can bring in the tools. Next question for you. You talked about also a deeper, I can't remember what you called it, but like cellular understanding.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some advanced tests like epigenetics and things of that nature. For somebody who is, maybe seeing their PCP once a year, or in my case, I'm trying to go a little bit more often, maybe twice a year, to get a typical kind of blood panel. What are one or two markers that are maybe left off of a standard panel that folks should look into and potentially, bring to their PCP?
So I would not even get this. I wouldn't even take this to your PCP simply because they won't run them. And I wouldn't even ask for a separate panel, because what happens is there's a difference between blood serum testing and cellular testing. Blood serum is what 99.9% of blood testing is. It's looking at what's freely floating through the blood. Vitamin C, lipids, cholesterols, vitamin D, you name it, freely flowing through the blood. But within that blood, there's cells, blood cells, that have absorbed or not absorbed those freely flowing vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. Vitamins, minerals, and amino acids are involved in 100% of all activities and processes within the body. So they're pretty important. Raw materials, the most important things in our body. Yep. You can't tell what the body is absorbing and using in a serum test. So you have to get a cellular panel. And once you get the cellular panel, you can understand what your body's absorbing and what it's using and what it's not. I've seen thousands and thousands of times, Anthony. It drives me up the wall, where people have high levels of vitamin D, vitamin A, lysine, cytoleucine in their serum, but they're functionally deficient in their cells. And this is why they can't sleep. This is why they have headaches. This is why they have brain fog. This is why they can't lose the weight. This is why they're not operating in an optimal fashion. And as soon as you help them replace those, it changes. And so this isn't even like a shameless plug, like ownittesting.com is where you can get this test at. It's literally the phlebotomist comes to your home, draws the blood, gets it done, and away you go. And we also wanted to make sure that it was fully accessible for everybody. And so HSA and FSA dollars fully pay for this.
Great.
So that's where I would go there. And then even what we were talking about with emergence or with HRV before, we created a course literally just for that, for people who got their wearables, like, this is going to excite me. This is going to change my life. And then they get it and they're like, I don't know what the heck to do.
Yeah.
And we created a course specifically for that called Emergence that takes these leaders and helps them understand their bodies better through their data so that they can be empowered to make changes. And that's ownitcoaching.com. So
I love that. I mean, just a perfect example of you don't know what you don't know. The difference between a cellular level test and a basic serum test, I'd say 97% of the population probably don't know the difference of that. It's important. Again, important to have advocates and resources in your corner, most of which are can be affordable if not free. Um, we have a lot of folks maybe on the line that are kind of trying to piece together a bit of their own kind of wellness plan. And for those folks who are, we know, today the focus was on really a deeper understanding and expanding your ownership and awareness. But for those of us kind of day to dayers, what are some of like the highest ROI things that we can do to support overall health and wellness, in your opinion?
Sleep is, easy number one.
Yeah.
Sleep is your superpower. And if you're not prioritizing your sleep, if you're not protecting your sleep, if you're not keeping that as sacred time, you're not only just ticking years off of your life, but you're also ticking hours off of your productivity and impact. And
Mm-hmm.
so a very easy, simple, tactical thing that you could take away from this into, okay, great, how do I improve my sleep? And we're talking about sleep quality here, because
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about that before, is sleep quality and sleep quality are not, or sleep quality and sleep quantity are not the same thing.
Yeah.
On any given night, we should aim for about 40 to 50% of our sleep to be sleep quality in restorative sleep, slow wave and REM sleep. And so if you're looking at your numbers and you're like, hey, I'm getting 8 hours of sleep, but it's like 32%, man, you're wasting a lot of those hours slept. You're not actually getting the quality restorative sleep that's necessary to get you into those stages. So it has to do, again, with these habits and behaviors that are curated around where we're going. And so I, again, would direct you to Emergence for how to actually understand the data so you can
Mm-hmm.
use it in a more purposeful way. Has nothing to do about the green rings, has nothing to do about readiness
Yep.
score, has nothing to do about recovery score, has everything to do about HRV and sleep quality. And so if you want to improve sleep quality, 3 very easy, simple, quick takeaways: a consistent sleep and wake time, making sure that you're going to bed within about 30 minutes at the same time and waking up within about 30 minutes at the same time. If one night you happen to all of a sudden go to bed later for whatever reason, still wake up at the exact same time,
Yeah.
because it's going to create a hormonal optimization balance in circadian rhythm. The second thing is a 3-2-1 rule. 3 hours before bed, no more major
Yep.
meals. 2 hours before bed, shut off all work and any heavy decision-making processes. 1 hour before bed, eliminate all blue light and start to enter into some type of parasympathetic or relaxation activity. The third thing is create some type of caffeine window where
Yeah.
you don't have caffeine after, because caffeine has a half-life in our bodies of somewhere between 8 and 10 hours. And so if we take in 200 milligrams of caffeine at noon, that means that we have 100 milligrams of caffeine still active between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. Caffeine looks the same to our brain as a neurotransmitter called adenosine. Adenosine
Mm-hmm.
is a trigger to our body to actually go into a downregulated or relaxation recovery state and helps us get into those deeper stages of sleep. Well, if caffeine is binded to those receptor sites, adenosine can't actually get in there. And that's why we feel all, again, overstimulated, overawake, overaware. Our mind races late at night, is because we can't get into those deep stages of
Yeah.
sleep because our body doesn't feel like we're ready to go. And so
Yeah.
that's a quick
Love it.
synopsis of things that you're going to get and
Mm.
ways that we're going to actually work with you to create this off of data in a personalized way to expose your journey, and really help you take ownership of your health.
I love that. This may be a loaded question, so we'll have to try to summarize here.
Sure,
But
yeah.
I'm so fascinated with some of these insights, and I'm curious, why is hormone health becoming a bigger part of like today's like mainstream discussion? And I hear it at the front of a lot of conversations, even in like younger demographics, 20s, 30s, getting baseline hormone tests and focusing on kind of their general and early awareness of their hormone health. Like, how has that come into the picture?
This actually really bothers me and it really upsets me. And it's not going to be the answer you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's because health and wellness companies have found they can prey on people and sell hormone replacement therapies and peptides as the solution.
Mm.
And thus, that's the only reason that people are getting it. And how's the
Yeah.
lead generation that you ultimately get people in to start spending 20? Literally, I was at lunch today with somebody who spent $20,000 a quarter for 4 years.
Mm.
33 years old. He started TRT when he was 29.
Oh my gosh.
There's zero reason for this. I did a great YouTube video. It went viral about 8
Yep, I
months
saw it.
ago.
Mhm.
You've seen that one? I talked
Yep,
about the problems with TRT.
yep.
And so this this is a $4.9 billion industry, and it's grown at over 300% over the last 6 years. And
Mhm,
when we look at this, 92% of people using hormone replacement therapies do not need it because they
mm,
haven't even been focused on any type of behavior change. They don't work out, they don't sleep well, they don't manage stress, they don't eat well, they aren't attentive to their cellular deficiencies, they don't know what products they're using, they're unaware of their environments, and they have zero awareness for how they're living, that thus has created the outcome of a little bit of a irregulated
yeah.
hormonal pattern. And simply because your lifestyle is dysfunctional, you're trying to find some quick solution. To your
Mm,
point, we want to expedite the process, some quick solution, but we fail to understand the downsides to doing that.
mm. I love that. We're trying to find the quick solution, or we're trying to find like the immediate scapegoat, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, it's
100%.
got to be hormones. That's so interesting. I appreciate even just like the level setting and alignment on that topic. So much more that we could we could explore here today. And
I love this.
I knew that this was going to get a little scientific and a little geeky, but I know that our Navigating Now community really does appreciate the practitionership that you brought to the discussion today, Justin. We want to thank you for your time and your leadership. I personally want to say congratulations on the book launch. The book is called The Power of Ownership. I'll let you share with the audience how folks can get the book and get in touch with you.
Yeah, no, this is great. Before I share this, I want to again challenge people. I'm a coach. I love to challenge people in
Do it.
this. Is um, there's three types of people that I found in this world, and there's the fans. There's the fans that'll come onto these lives and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I was so entertained. I got so much information. I got so much value from that. I'm cheering for you, Justin. I'm like, just keep doing your great work, Anthony. Keep doing your great work." They're the people that buy all the courses, that show up and just do these little events. Then there's the journalist that maybe showed up here, writes everything down, and then they go
Mm,
tell all their friends what to do. Then they go tell everybody else what to do. Then they evaluate how well this was done. Oh, do you know what? Justin's hair didn't look good. Or you know what? Justin stumbled on some words. Or Anthony's lighting wasn't good. Or whatever it was. They're the critic. And then there's the player. The player is the one
mm,
that shows up. The player is the one that's doing the work. The player is the one that hires the coach. The player is the one that actually goes out and fails. The player is the one that goes out and learns. The player is the one that goes and takes action. But the crazy part about it is there's only one of those groups that actually gets to play for the championship, only gets to play for the win. There's only one of those groups. And so I want to challenge you out there. Don't be the fan. Don't be the journalist. Be the player,
mm,
because that is what makes you different. If you have that mentality that you're going to be the player, that you're going to go and take action, that you're going to go and find the book, that you're going to go and reach out and get the testing, that you're going to go and reach out and get the consultant and get the coaching to actually step in and go, I want to figure out how to learn this thing so that I can empower myself to step in and actually be the leader that I'm supposed to be the CEO I'm supposed to be the father, the mother that I'm supposed to be, and realize that you are the asset, not the expert. It's only when you have that level of humility that you as the player can ultimately step into the next version of what you were called to. And so you can find the book, The Power of Ownership, at thepowerofownershipbook.com. And I want you to be the player. I want you to
mm.
elevate where you're going. It starts with awareness. And if you're not willing to be aware, then you're going to stay exactly where you are, but you're too good to stay there. So be the player, step in
Mm.
and do something different.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you so much for your leadership here. Thank you for some of the kind of like challenging insights and challenging thoughts here. I know that our community will appreciate it. Again, wanna wish you luck on your endeavors. I can just feel the level of practitionership and passion that you bring to your work every day, and just those are the types of leaders that we love to be around. So, thank you so much, Justin. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
We'll talk to you soon. All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining this, what ended up being an extended edition of today's Navigating Now Virtual Roundtable Series, episode 182. What a conversation with Justin. You dice this up, and um, no matter how specific we got in certain topics, there were, we always talk about the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set. And it's very clear that in today's kind of well-being arena, both personal and professional, there are a lot of skills and tools out there. But one of the best things that we can do is continue to invest in the mindset. That is the foundation of where all of the growth happens. And we want to thank you all for stepping into the discussion today, for being a part of the Navigating Now community. We go live every Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Central. You can find this episode, all previous episodes, and all future episodes at thoughtteam.com/live. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.